Welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, David Haas. You're listening to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I'm here today alone in the studio, but I think I'm going to cover something that I think a lot of people are missing, and I think this is really what I do. Like, a lot of people are like, what do you do? Like, what is it? What is coaching? What is it that I do? And ultimately, I believe I'm like a merger between spirituality and productivity, or spirituality and functionality, because I think the two worlds are very separate. It's like, if you want to achieve a goal, here's the process of achieving a goal. Like, get your mindset right, get this. But there's this whole entire other world that is the spiritual world, and the two kind of don't coincide with regards to society's standpoint. But really, the two are very, very much so aligned. And that's really where I feel that what my role is. I'm like the bridge between those two worlds, because I'm an entrepreneur, but also because I'm this person that's gone down this deep, long spiritual journey to overcome addictions, to achieve the life of my dreams. And I did it all through spiritual growth, but I still had this like very practical productivity mindset where I still want to expand my message. I still want to grow my businesses. So I'm the bridge between those two worlds. And I think it's probably best described as this, and I heard this from this guy. His name is, I'm going to forget his name. I forget his name. This bad. Mastin Flip. I can't remember what his name is. Jeez. I think his first name is Mastin. I think it's Mastin Kip. Well, my social media girls are going to figure it out for me, so I get his name right. But Mastin Kip, yeah. So he's great, real cool guy. Same kind of process as like about combining spirituality and science is really for him. But here's the breakdown, and here, this is a really practical example. It's like, in the physical world, if we step on a nail, the first thing that we do is we bring attention to it. Like, holy shit, I just stepped on a nail, right? The next thing that we need to do in order to make sure that that nail doesn't infect our entire body is we need to get that nail out, we need to clean the wound, and then we need to put a Band-Aid on it so it heals. After we have done that, and after we put the Band-Aid on it, we don't really pay too much attention to the healing process, because we know the body's going to do what it needs to do to heal that wound. We might check up on it every now and then, but eventually the body's just going to heal from that wound. When it comes to the emotional world, or the spiritual world, we take a very different approach. And mainly this is because most of the negative emotions that we felt as children, we were too young to be able to analyze them or be aware of them. And we just allowed our primitive minds, the ego, to deal with them. So we experienced some sort of childhood trauma, and it doesn't have to be this huge trauma. Like, it could be something as small as your parents forgetting to pick you up from school and they were 5 minutes late. And then that created the feeling that you were unwanted or unworthy. And that created a pattern for the rest of your life. The ego, what it'll do is it tries to keep us safe. So it will now make sure that we never feel that feeling of being unwanted ever again. So what does that look like in your adult life? Well, maybe you're like just overly anal, right? So you're like on point with every single thing in your schedule so that you make sure that no one ever forgets about you ever again, right? Which creates stress, anxiety, overthinking. This is what ends up happening because of one single little incident. And I'm going to give you some more practical examples of how that played out in my own life a little bit later on. But in the emotional and spiritual world, what's happening is we're stepping on the nail. We don't even realize it's painful in the moment. We're unaware of the pain it's creating, right? Maybe we do feel bad or sad, but then we do what everyone does, and we repress those emotions. We suppress those emotions. We escape those emotions. We might express those emotions to our friends, and it just ends up amplifying the emotion even more. But we never actually pull that nail out. And how do you pull the nail out? We pull the nail out by truly feeling the emotion. And when you truly feel the emotion, the nail comes out and the wound gets clean, and then automatically we heal. So what happens in the emotional world and the spiritual world is that we step on the nail. We're kind of unaware. We might be aware of the pain, but we're unaware of the damage that nail is going to cause. And we go about our entire lives with a nail in our foot. And then 10 years later, we have gangrene in our legs and in our leg, and we have to cut our leg off. And we're like, I just don't understand what happened. right? And it's like, well, what happened was, you experienced this trauma and then you never did anything about it. And this is where functional medicine is like really kind of taking on this whole new role. It's like doctors today, normal doctors, are only dealing with the symptom. So you have a tumor, let's cut the tumor out. Let's give you chemotherapy to kill that tumor. They're not dealing with the actual cause of that tumor. What was toxic in the body? What was created in the body that created this tumor, right? We have stress, we have anxiety, we have mental health issues. We're taking pills to subside those feelings of overwhelm, those feelings of stress and anxiety. The last thing that we want to do, though, when we're feeling anxiety, stress, these types of things, is take a pill to numb our emotions even more. Because the emotions are like a little red light going off saying, hey, something's wrong here, right? Something's wrong, and we need to figure out what it is that's going on in the body in order to be completely free of this. So this is what functional medicine does. They say you have an illness, whatever it is. Instead of just saying, okay, what's the symptom and what pill can we give you? How can we treat the symptom? They're looking at why the symptom was created in the first place, and they're going deep. They're looking at what's in your diet. They're looking at if you're being exposed to heavy metals. They're looking at emotional and stress levels, these types of things, to try and get to the root of the issue. Because when you solve the root of the issue, you no longer have to worry about treating the symptoms because all the symptoms go away. And this is the exact same thing that happens in my coaching platform, which could be called functional coaching if you wanted to. And this is what Mastin Kipp is talking about. He's a functional coach, which is like, let's get to the root of the problem so that we can remove the mechanisms that were created in order for you to not feel a certain way. Once we remove those mechanisms, then you're clear to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. I believe that we're all great. We're all already great. But along the way, we stepped on some nails, and those nails are what is limiting us from unlocking that potential. And I call this our blocks to success. And when I say success, I mean success in any area of life, not just financial success and professional success, relationship success, spiritual success, whatever you want to call success. It's like there are limits to us actually feeling our full potential. And those limits are the nails that we've stepped on that we were completely unaware of. Okay? So the role of my coaching, the role of spiritual growth, is to start bringing attention to that nail, that emotional trauma, learning how to let go of it and become free. And when we learn how to let go of it and become free, we then no longer need the mechanisms that we created in order to prevent us from feeling these lower states of consciousness, these lower states of emotions anymore, because we're no longer fear that emotion. We no longer fear feeling that emotion. Now here's the thing about this work. It's just not pretty, we see all these quotes and everything on Instagram, and everything's all lovey-dovey and rainbows and butterflies, but real true spiritual growth is about digging deep into our past and into the places that our ego has done everything in its power to avoid feeling those emotions. Our ego has created mechanisms. One of the ones that comes to mind right now is perfectionism. I have a saying that perfectionism is just a mechanism that you've created to avoid feeling a certain way. So what would a scenario be that created perfectionism? So let's just say, as a young boy, your father was kind of absentee, right? So you would do everything that you possibly can to try and get your father's attention, right? And then maybe when you did get your father's attention, he would downplay whatever it was that you had accomplished. Maybe you got an A in school and your father was like, oh yeah, like good job, or why didn't you get an A plus? Something as small as that. From that moment forward, you said, oh, I better become perfect at everything that I do in order to get the approval of my father. But that perfectionism is actually what's preventing you from moving forward, because now you just don't do anything unless it's completely perfect. And we all know that creating something completely perfect is an illusion. So that desire for perfectionism, which was really a desire to not feel the disapproval of your father from when you were 9 years old, is what is blocking you from achieving the levels of success that you need to do. So these are the kinds of things that not dealing with our negative emotions will do. So what I help clients do is come to that awareness. So how do you come to the awareness? Especially with something that is repressed, okay? And this is where the two worlds merge, okay? This is where science and functionality and spirituality all come together. So we now know, if you've listened to the first 10 minutes of this podcast, you now know that something happened to you in your life that created whatever symptom you're feeling today. So maybe it's stress, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's addiction, maybe it is lack of success, maybe it's that you're in scarcity. Whatever it is that you're experiencing, whatever symptom you're experiencing, is just highlighting what emotional trauma that you had happen to you in your life. But if it's something that you don't have awareness of, how do you create the awareness? So the way that you create the awareness is by connecting to the present moment, connecting to allness, connecting to God, to the universe, to infinite intelligence, whatever your belief system is, right? It's like we get so caught up when we say the word God or we say the word religion, and people just get completely turned off. But, when Jesus was doing his work, he didn't say, love Christianity or, love Buddha. He just said, love your God, okay? So he's just saying, believe in a higher power. Believe in something that's greater than yourself. And this is the question I always have for people that are atheists. If you're an atheist, I always say, well, what do you believe in that's higher than yourself? And whatever their answer is that is the belief that they need to connect to in order to get to the answer of anything they know. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing all kinds of work where he is really putting the science to how to get the answers that are outside the circle of what you know. The circle of what you know is everything that's ever happened to you in your entire life, everything you've ever been taught. In order to try and solve your problems, you're always just looking inside that circle. And we need to step outside that circle to get to the real answers. So one of the things that's outside the circle of what you know, because you've repressed it, is some of your childhood traumas, okay? So if you can learn to connect to the present moment, then those childhood traumas that are stored in this collective consciousness, that are stored in the universe, that are stored in infinite intelligence, those traumas will be brought into the light. You'll finally be able to see the nail in your foot, okay? So how do you do that? I'm going to give you a real practical step. So what you want to do is just close your eyes, and obviously you're not doing this now. I'm just going to give you the steps to do it. Close your eyes and get connected to this allness, whatever your belief is. Again, this is not religious. This is not, about Jesus or Buddha or God or anything. It's just about whatever your belief is in a higher power, right? Just get connected to that and just visualize that however you want. I usually visualize it as a white light coming to the top of my head. Sit there in meditation. Then what you want to do is connect to the present moment. So use a constant noise, use your breath. I like to use a metronome that you can download an app on your phone, which is just a tick, tick, back and forth, and focus all of your attention on that constant noise or all of your attention on that breath. When you do that, you're going to find that your mind wants to run away, okay? And the reason your mind wants to run away is because the ego, which is the mind, can only exist in the past or in the future, okay? So when you find your mind running away, you're going to observe that it's either going to thinking of the past or thinking of what you have to do later on in the day or what you have to do, 10 years down the road. So just observe that and bring your awareness back to that constant noise or to your breath. You do this for, let's say, a minute. You do this for, and then what you want to do is you want to ask a question. So let's just say we're trying to overcome overthinking. And you ask yourself, where did this overthinking begin in my life? And then you wait for an answer to be revealed to you. So you're connecting to this power that is all-knowing, all-present, and all-powerful, meaning everything that has ever happened to you in your entire life has been recorded and it's been stored. And we can connect to that answer by connecting to the present moment, by getting outside the circle of what we know. So we sit there and we wait. And what you're going to find is a moment's going to come up to you. Is this going to be revealed to you? It could be something a kid said to you in grade school. It could be something your dad said, something your mom said, something a sibling said, whatever it may be. It could be an actual event that took place. For me, the death of my mother was a big one that I had to really work hard at overcoming, okay? Once you identify that moment, once you see the nail, the next step is to remove the nail. So how do you remove the nail? Well, just ask your past self in that moment, now that you're connected to the moment, how did that make you feel? How do you feel right now? Give that kid or that teenager or that young adult the ability to finally let those emotions out. Let them be free. That is the letting go process, okay? Once you do that, once you truly remove these emotions, you then remove all of the thoughts that are associated with those emotions, okay? So in the overthinking example, right? People are always talking about like think positively, have a good mindset. But what they're missing is all thoughts are associated with emotions, okay? So you can try and do all of the positive thinking you want, but if you don't get to the root, all you're doing is cutting out the tumor. You're not actually dealing with the emotion that's at the root of your thousands of thoughts that you're having a day around this one issue. So now that you've learned how to connect to the present moment, you've got outside the circle of what you know, the moment has been identified, you ask yourself, how do I feel right now? And let's just say it's like a feeling of unworthiness. I feel terrible. I feel guilty. I feel shameful. I feel embarrassed. I'm scared. Whatever it is, I don't know what the emotion is going to be for you. But then just allow yourself to feel that emotion fully. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to start feeling the emotion fully, but the ego, again, is going to do what it's always done because everything the ego has done up until this point in your life has been to avoid feeling this emotion. So it's going to run like hell. And how is it going to run? It's going to run to the future. It's going to run to the past. It's going to rationalize. It's going to judge. It's going to do everything in its power to not feel this emotion, okay? So now you just have to observe those resistances, observe that rationality, and just allow yourself to connect to the moment. The way I do it, that seems to work really well for me and for my clients, is I might just repeat one thing that was said to me that really triggered me. So if I was in a fight with, my dad, and he said one thing to me that like really, really triggered me, I would just visualize my dad repeating that. And if I'm trying to let go of anger, I would visualize myself screaming, yelling, punching, kicking, doing whatever, and I wouldn't allow myself to run away from feeling that emotion fully. Once you do that, you're going to get to a point, and this is the other thing, the other tool that I would give you is, as soon as you really, truly connect with how you feel in that moment, in the past, I would rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Say, how intense is this feeling right now? Pretty much always it's a 10. I've never actually experienced it personally where it's been a 7. So it's a 10. Okay. And I keep feeling that emotion until it's a 0. That is the letting go process. After that, the healing process begins. Even just the awareness that you have a nail in your foot is going to begin the healing process because you're going to start researching how to get this fucking nail out of your foot. Okay. So even the awareness is enough to start the process. But actually pulling the nail out and being free, your spiritual self, your higher self is going to do the healing, and the healing is going to happen. The third step, though, and this is directly related to my coaching system, which is realize, release, and realign. So realize I got a nail in my foot, release it, pull it out, be free of the emotions, let go. And the last step is realign, which is realign yourself with new habits. So you have patterns now. If you're overthinking, the pattern that you have is every time somebody says one thing, you begin to go crazy and overthink. But now you can come to the awareness that, oh, that was the old me. That was the me that was, living with this nail in my foot. That was the me that was so critical of myself that created this overthinking. So then you can stop yourself and you can create new patterns. You can create new habits. And this is how you become free of any emotion that is creating thousands of thoughts a day in your life. And this is where we merge spirituality and productivity, because it's very hard to be productive when we have these limiting beliefs, when we have these nails in our feet, to completely kill this analogy to death here. So I'm going to give you some real practical examples from me. Some real life experience so you can start to understand how spirituality and productivity align. So one of the things for me was my addiction to alcohol. And I never even still really considered myself an addict, but looking back, like I had all the signs of being an alcoholic. I was over drinking, I was drinking too much, it was becoming a barrier to my success. I was still pretty functional, but I wasn't achieving the level of success that I had. It was a block to my greatness. It was a limit to me being great, right? So I started creating awareness that alcohol was a problem. Now, alcohol was the symptom, okay? So now alcohol is becoming a barrier to my success. And I knew that I had to quit drinking alcohol if I wanted to unlock my greatness, okay? So I started to ask the question, the question that I asked, I think a lot of people weren't asking, was, why do I drink alcohol, right? And my answers were simple. I love it. It's fun. Like, it allows me to have fun with my friends. Like, I enjoy going out to bars. I enjoy socializing. It's like I'm the life of the party, okay? So but that wasn't at the root of it. There was something deeper at the root. And I started making this awareness that I needed to go deeper. So one time I'm in a treatment, and it's like a spiritual healing treatment with this woman. And I said, what do you think's going on with my drinking? And she says, it's self-doubt. And I said, self-doubt? I didn't even completely connect. But that one word that she said to me was basically me finally seeing the nail in my foot, okay? Even though I didn't know what to do with it at the time. Now I was just aware that I was walking around with a nail in my foot, and that nail was self-doubt. Over the course of time, I began to create more awareness. And this is why I said awareness alone will begin the healing process. I started to create more awareness. And what I came to realize, and I've already done a podcast on addiction, so I'm going to kind of make this quicker. What I came to realize was that the self-doubt that I was experiencing was because I thought that if I quit drinking alcohol, I was no longer going to be cool. Okay? That was directly tied to when I was in grade 9. I had all these problems with all these guys that wanted to fight me, and I was running away, and I was fighting people. I was doing all these things. In grade school, I was the life of the party, and I was this popular kid full of energy. In high school, I went into a shell. I didn't come out of that shell until I started drinking alcohol again. Okay? So the self-doubt was created because alcohol allowed me to be my true self. Right? So now that I was able to be my true self, I then came to the realization, I'm like, oh, I need to learn how to become my true self without the use of alcohol, right? Once I kind of put that picture together, I was able to quit drinking without any AA, without any rehab, without anything, just because of one simple realization that I made. I finally became aware that I was living with a nail on my foot. I learned how to pull the nail out and be free of it. And then I no longer needed the mechanism, alcohol, to become free. I no longer need the mechanism, which was alcohol, to be my true self. Okay? So this is how spirituality and productivity can get aligned, and functionality can get aligned, right? Because I was not very functional when I was drinking alcohol. I mean, I was not really making any money. I was not really producing anything. Okay? So once I finally was able to remove this block to my greatness, my functionality went through the roof. And I started making all kinds of money. I started growing spiritually. I started becoming happier. My relationships improved. My life as a whole improved. And it was all by eliminating this one critical factor, by finally realizing that I had this one nail in my foot. Okay? So this is one way that spirituality can be directly related to productivity and functionality. The second way, though, is that when we learn to connect to this allness or to this infinite intelligence, we can literally get the answer to any question that we have. Okay? So I believe this wholeheartedly. Even though I've seen it a thousand times, I still question it. So one of the examples that I've given multiple times is I always write in these journals, right? I think I talked about this last podcast, but I'll just say it again because it's such a powerful story. So I always write in these podcasts, and I'm thinking about writing a book, and I had written all the chapters to my book in one of my journals, and I lost that journal. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I did what I normally do. I tear my house apart. I went through my business. I went through my car. I couldn't find them. In 2.5 days, I couldn't find these journals. And then finally, I realized that I have the ability to not only connect to this allness, this all-knowing, everything that's ever happened to me has been stored in collective consciousness, and I have the ability to tap into that collective consciousness. And I've used that to heal from some pretty critical things that have now allowed me to become insanely productive. Okay? So if that power that exists can help me overcome major issues in my life, it should be able to help me find a simple journal, right? So I sat in a meditation, and the first message that comes to me is that they were stolen from me. I observed that thought. I let it pass. The next thing that comes to me is, And this is from the present moment. I'm connecting to the present moment, connecting to my breath. The next thought that comes to me is that they're always in the drawer that you keep them in. Or no, the next thought I had was that they weren't taken by my own hand. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. I wouldn't talk like that. I observe it, let it go. The last thought, or last visualization, because for me it's visualizations, was that they're always in that drawer. So I immediately come out of the meditation. This is a 5-minute meditation. I open up the drawer, which I've looked into 100 times and they weren't there. And I realized in that moment that the drawer was insanely full and that there's a chance that the journals might have been taken and knocked behind. So I pulled the drawer completely out, and there was the journal laying on the bottom of the drawer. It had not been taken by my own hand, meaning it had got pushed off, not by me, and it was hidden underneath the drawer. This is the power that exists. This is the merger between the real world and spirituality that I think a lot of people are missing. Like right now, it's like you're either spiritual or you're either successful, okay? And the two can go hand in hand. The two can be aligned, right? You don't need to give up your desires, I guess. I don't like the word desires. You're wanting to live a better life, to live in a bigger house in order to be spiritual, okay? The difference between desire and want, I guess, is a desire completely controls you. You're not allowing yourself to be happy until you achieve your goal. Whereas a want is like, I want it. I want to bring that into my life, but I'm okay if it doesn't happen. I'm going to keep moving forward every single day towards my goal. For me, it's like of speaking in front of millions of people, of spreading my message. I'm going to keep moving towards that goal every day, but I'm content and I'm happy right now. When you learn how to be content and happy right now, you let go of the outcome. And when you let go of the outcome, you remove another block to actually achieving the outcome that you want. Okay? So this is where the two merge. And I think this is what I really do for my clients. And I think this is what a lot of people needed to hear, because I think a lot of people are open to spirituality and spiritual growth, but they don't really know where to start. Okay? They don't really know how to get into it. They think it's like woo-woo or whatever. But there's a merger, and I believe I'm the door between woo-woo and productivity and woo-woo and functionality, okay? So I guess the message from this podcast is don't close the door to spirituality just because someone mentions God or someone mentions meditating, I don't know, like, or the universe or whatever it may be, you know, like whatever is turning you off from spirituality, because spirituality can create some insane productivity. And that's what it's done for me. I believe now that I can get more done. I can get more done in a week than most people get done in 6 months, right? Because I've learned to remove all of the blocks. I pulled all of the nails out of my feet, and now I'm fully free. And I shouldn't say I pulled all the nails out of my own feet, because I still have nails I got to work on, right? I've created the awareness around them, and now I'm in the process of removing them so I can be free of them forever, okay? So this is the power of spiritual growth. This is the power of functional coaching. This is what is available to all of us, right? And the one thing that you need when you're trying to bring awareness to the nails in your feet is you need a mentor. And that's what was for me. It was the critical factor. I needed someone that was on the outside looking in, and they could say, hey, Dave, I can see that nail in your foot. Even though I couldn't see it, my mentor was able to see it for me, and he created the awareness. He created that first, oh shit, I have a nail in my foot. Then I could go and begin to do the work to remove it. So that's it for today's podcast. I'm going to be releasing another podcast next week, and I'm going to be very soon bringing some guests on now that the kind of restrictions to this whole coronavirus are happening. If you haven't already, please subscribe, because I'm going to be releasing some amazing content, and it's about this merger between productivity and functionality and spirituality, because I believe that's where the world's going. A lot of the work that I'm doing here is, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of its time. You're starting to see the little glimpses of it in society today. But if you want to be like at the epicenter, then make sure you subscribe, because this is the next evolution, evolution of consciousness that's going to happen for mankind. So thanks for taking the time to listen, and I'll see you next Wednesday.